Chairman, Rowena Brebner, meeting producer. We've had confirmation that the live stream has started.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Central Sub-Area Committee. Welcome councillors and members of the public. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, I will adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored. If the issue can't be resolved, I will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I will adjourn for a short period to try to re-establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I will remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the Democratic officer will advise you. The vote will be taken verbally by roll call and the result announced by the Democratic Services Officer. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on each planning application in order to be able to vote. We have public speakers at the meeting today and they will be joining the meeting by telephone. Where a member has declared a non-registerable interest, a disposable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the committee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using the X in the chat box. Before we start today's business, I'll ask the Democratic Services Officer to ask committee members to confirm they are present and state their electoral division. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll now call your name. Please confirm your name and electoral division member. Councillor Alvey.
Good afternoon, Martin Alvey, Councillor for Feock and Plain Place.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Good afternoon, Malcolm Brown, Councillor for St Austell, Bethel.
Thank you. Councillor Bull.
Good afternoon, Jackie Bull, Councillor for St Austell, Poltaire.
Thank you. Councillor Dyer.
Kenwyn, Chasewater and the great metropolis of Baldew.
Thank you. Councillor Greenslade.
Hello everybody, Fred Greenslade, St Dennis and Nanpian.
Thank you. Councillor Jewell.
Councillor Alan Jewell, Falmouth Boslow Division.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
Good afternoon, Joanna Kenny, Newquay Pentire.
Councillor John Martin. Councillor Martin, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. John Martin, Councillor for Helston South.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Yes, good afternoon, Councillor Simmons for Penryn East and Moyler.
Thank you. Councillor Mould.
Hello, good afternoon. Oh, sorry, my camera's given up. Good afternoon, Carol Mould, St Minver and St Endelian Division.
Thank you. Councillor John Thomas.
Good afternoon, Cornwall Councillor John Thomas, Electoral Divisional Member for Lanner and Stithians.
Thank you. And Councillor Peter Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. Councillor Peter Williams for representing Mabe, St Glovius and Perna-Wall.
Thank you. I can confirm that the following officers are also present. Matthew Stevenson, Development Management Group Leader. Gavin Smith, Development Management Group Leader. Sophie Rogers, Development Officer. Tracy Young, Senior Development Officer. Samuel Fuller, Development Officer. The meeting producer today is Rowena Brebner, and myself, Emma Code, Democratic Officer. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Emma. And before we start, Vice Chairman, I think I'm not sure if you know your camera and mic is on. Right, we'll move on. So agenda item 1. Are there any apologies, please, Emma?
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies today from Councillors Batter, Tudor and May, and attending as substitute for Councillor May is Councillor John Simmons.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Are there any interests, please? No, thank you. Then we move straight on to agenda item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 22nd of March. You've all had sight of those minutes. Unless there are any challenges on accuracy, I wonder if I could have a proposer, please.
Proposed, Madam Chairman, we accept them.
Thank you very much. That's Councillor Thomas, isn't it?
It is, yes, Madam Chairman.
Second,
Thank
Chairman.
you. And can I have a seconder, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Chair, Fred Greenslade.
Oh, thanks, Fred. Right, Emma, did you wish this vote to be taken by roll call?
Yes, Chairman. I'll read out names if you confirm whether you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alvey. Councillor Alvey.
Sorry, a bit of a delay on the line. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Bull.
4.
Councillor Dyer.
4.
Councillor Greenslade.
4.
Councillor Jewell.
4.
Councillor Kenny.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Simmons.
Because I wasn't here.
Thank you. Councillor Mould.
4.
Councillor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Williams.
4.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that they have been carried as a correct record. Chairman, I should also have said that we do also have Jane Asprey here as legal advisor for the committee.
Thank you very much. Right, we move straight into the planning applications then. And the first item is PA 20-06351, Mr. D. Cole, The Retreat, Tredragon Road, Morgan Porth, Newquay, demolition of dwelling and construction of replacement dwelling and associated works. The case officer is Samuel Fuller. So over to you, please, Samuel.
Okay, Chairman, afternoon all. I'll just
Afternoon.
Yeah. Just checking that's all visible.
Yes, yeah, all good.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yep, so this is agenda number 4.1, The Retreat, Tredragon Road, Morgan Porth, and it's PA 20-06351, demolition of the existing dwelling and the replacement of it and associated works. Just as a verbal update and a verbal addendum, which you may already be aware of just because it was sent around by a third party, there has been further correspondence, just going through some concerns from third parties and a petition from 24 properties or residences, which were all signed in objection to the scheme. Just thought that would be an addendum and update, and there's no new concerns from that at the moment. But yeah, I'll carry on with the PowerPoints. So the key issues for this application is the principal development, the design and character impact of the replacement dwelling, the amenity issues that might arise from the proposal, and any access issues as well. So this just gives a location plan of the proposal. So proposal is highlighted within the red area there. So County Wildlife Site, which is the beach, sits to the left and to the right. And then Special Area of Conservation, which is the kind of dashed area to the left of the screen. So this shows the proposal just in a more close-up way. Just the proposal site is within the red line area there. The blue dotted lines show footpaths, and the hashed area is the settlement boundary of Morgan Porth. So this is an aerial plan, again showing the site within the red line area, and that is the retreat at the moment, and just the properties and built form of Morgan Porth. So this is the elevation plans. So it should show all sides of the proposal. This is a replacement dwelling. So it shows the east elevation, which is from the road sides here, the north elevation and south elevation from the sides, and the west elevation, which would be views from the beach side, looking back, and which shows the proposal there. The blue dotted line is the existing dwelling, and then the elevations show that the proposed replacement dwelling there, and then the dwellings to the sides. So this is the floor plans. It shows there's 4 levels to the proposed dwelling, which is a basement level, which shows a gym and parking area. The lower ground floor, which is where most of the bedrooms shall be. Got the living area on the ground floor, and then there's a single office room, an entranceway to the first floor, which should be at road level. So this is the site plan. Just to give context, the existing building, there is a key to the side just to show what shows which. But yeah, the red line area is the existing dwelling, and then the proposed is shown there in detailed. Most of the bulk is kind of within that green shade area, and the terraces kind of protrude beyond that. So it should have it will have a ceiling roof. There was a landscape plan submitted as well, which shows the respective trees, which would be to the left along that hedgerow. It's just the trees there, and there'll be back boxes included as well, and hedgerows to the side. And this shows the garage here as well. So this is just a cross section just showing ridge heights. So this is the west elevation, so looking, I guess, from the beach side to the street scene elevation. So we've got Dragon Springs, Dunarth, the retreat, the steps, and the pin. That should be run clearer in further photos when I show them to you. And just shows the West Street elevation, so that's from the highway above the dwelling, or in line with the top of the dwelling. Just shows you the respective ridge heights across there. And it's probably not easy to see the actual figures of the ridge heights. So the retreat will be 44.62, which is the proposal, this one here. The steps with 45.17, which is here. Dunarth, which is 44.23. Dragon Springs, which would be 46.27, and the pin, which would be 45.39. Just for a bit of context, they are generally the same. And then this shows the side elevations and kind of how the dwelling will protrude out a bit further. So this is just an existing visual, so it doesn't show the proposed dwelling yet. It just gives you the context of the site as existing. This site is here. And let's dine off and the steps there, and that's the site there just behind Blue Seas. And then this shows the proposed visual of the proposal, which is the replacement dwelling. And this is just another visual. So this is again existing. The existing dwelling is here, and then this shows the replacement dwelling in its place, just to show the context of how it will look from viewpoints. Just moving on to photos. This is from the highway to the east, so that's Dragon Springs to the right and Dunarth, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, just beyond, and to the highway which reaches to the retreat just beyond. Yeah. So this is just a bit further to the south of the road. So we're looking from the east, from the roadside. This is the existing dwelling here, with steps down, and then beach to the right, to the west. Sorry. Just another photo from the highway, looking out to the east, just showing the existing dwelling, viewpoints beyond, and just general context. So this is taken from the road to the west, to the south, northwest of the site. This is Dunarth, the steps and the pin, and the existing dwelling here, which is partially obscured by existing planting, and then the hotel to the right there, left, sorry. So this is a photo from the west, from the northwest as well, just showing the context of the dwellings to the north of the site. So these are more recent redevelopments, and just the general backdrop of the dwelling. And then this is showing, again, the proposed, so the existing building site, and then a more traditional form to the south. And then this just shows it in context, showing the neighbouring dwellings as the modern redevelopment here, the site, and the more traditional to the south. So in terms of the balance considerations, the principal development, i.e. the replacement dwelling, is accepted because it's a settlement boundary of Morgan Porth, compliant with policy 3. The design on balance is considered acceptable, with changes made following the Southwest DRP, so that the site went to, as you'll be aware, a Southwest design review panel, where there was comments made and changes have been made from from those comments to improve the scheme. It's now viewed that it is acceptable and has responded to those largely negative comments from the DRP, and yet it's viewed to fit well within the site and wider landscape. In terms of amenity, again, this has been accepted. There's been side screens, and there will be remove the ability to walk out onto the higher level of the dwelling to remove any unacceptable viewpoints from those viewpoints. So from those levels. So from there, it has been accepted, and then appropriate access has been achieved. So that just be to the site and using the garage. So all in all, officers are recommended to approve the scheme with the conditions as set out within the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have someone speaking in objection, Mr. John Cook. Can you hear us, Mr. Cook? Are you with us?
Yes, I'm.
Good.
Yes.
Right, Mr. Cook, you have 3 minutes and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This site lies within the residential area, and there is no objection in principle to the replacement either of the existing dwelling or the introduction of modern design. The appearance of the area is testament to such innovation. Design is much more than appearance. Good design reflects the location and understands the character of the area and the relationship with neighbours, something that this development utterly fails to do. The independent Cornwall design panel assessed this development after submission, and notwithstanding the various amendments made, some positive and some making no significant difference to issues of concern, the appearance remains fundamentally the same and is unreflective of the area as the panel first observed. I suggest the last-minute introduction of stones to the lower floor and sides is not sufficient to address the concerns of the panel. The main change is in width and appears to arise from a response following submission through drainage easement rather than panel concerns. If before making a decision today, members are mindful to look at the site map at the start of the planning officer's written report, the relationship of the existing dwelling with the redeveloped neighbour to the north and the existing traditional dwelling to the south will show the manner in which existing dwellings, new and old, relate successfully one to another. However, examination of the proposed plan produced at section 12 of the planning officer's written report illustrates that the extent of balconies and the body of the new dwelling will result in the dwelling projecting further forward on the location visually and in terms of neighbour dominance. In terms of dominance and the associated impact on privacy, the development fails in its consideration of neighbours. This is not a design providing a discrete directional outlook and view, incorporating a deck or modest balcony. This is a hugely imposing structure which, although exceeding the design guidance of 25 metres between windows in my client's case, presents such extensive open balconies so far forward on the site that the property is entirely dominated by the new structure. Proximity and side views from the balconies are such that the same can be said for neighbours north and south. The existing dwelling has windows that enjoy the sea views, and a more modest scheme, recognising the fact of near neighbours, could still achieve improved views and accommodation without the harm that would be introduced in this proposal. There is neither a harbour at Morgan Porth nor moorings. Indeed, precious little nautical influence in any respect that would justify the claimed design link to the super yacht. I suggest that the most successful developments in the area would seem to be those that have sought to incorporate recessive colourings in materials and finishes, look to work with the landscape and its contours and its scale, and which considers relationships to neighbours. The development is contrary to MPPF guidance at paragraphs 127, 131, and contrary to policies 1, in terms of environmental impact, 2, part 1, consideration of the landscape, and 12, part 2 of the adopted local plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for clarification from Mr. Cook, please? I see no questions arriving. Mr. Cook, I'll just give it another moment. No questions. Can you confirm, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I can confirm, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Then thank you for joining us, Mr. Cook. And we move on to hearing from Councillor William Corbett, Morgan and Pidar Parish Council, also speaking in objection. Hello, Councillor Corbett. Can you hear us?
Councillor Corbett he was joined in the meeting. He's just entering the meeting now, Chairman. He should be literally here just in a second.
Hello, Councillor Corbett. Can you hear us?
Councillor Corbett, can you mute your live stream in the background, please? There's interference.
Muted.
Councillor Corbett, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Chairman.
Good, and we can hear you. So,
good. Thank you.
You know the drill. You'll have 3 minutes, Councillor Corbett, and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Parish Council's objections here go to the height, bulk and massing of this proposal, which is considered inappropriate in what, under the Restormal local plan, was designated as an area of special character. The stated justification for that designation was that the area derived its particular character from its gardens, areas of natural clifftop, and relatively low density of development. The whole purpose of the policy was to protect against applications such as this one, which would have the effect of eroding this special character through radical increases in the density of development. This is the first time that anyone has tried to replace an existing 2-storey dwelling with a 4-storey dwelling. Together with the 2 new properties to the northeast, it will materially consolidate the density of development in this part of the village, almost to give the appearance of a terrace of properties. This does not respect the existing context. It further confirms the precedent for overlarge rebuilds, and it's likely to lead to ever taller buildings or even apartment blocks where individual houses once stood. This is not what the community wishes, as is evidenced by the large number of objections. The policies exist within the development plan to refuse this application. Policy 2 places a specific requirement to protect special character where it exists, and Policy 12 requires new development to be of an appropriate scale, density, layout, height and mass, with a clear understanding and response to its landscape, seascape and townscape setting. In the Parish Council's view, this application fails in these regards. Further, it's distinctly unneighbourly on account of the large balcony areas and their capacity to overlook surrounding properties. This is recognised at paras 44 and 45 of the officer's report. Under the latest permitted development order, it's essentially permissible to add 1 or even 2 additional stories to a house, subject to certain qualifications. Therefore, if this application were to be approved, the PC would in any event request that permitted development rights be removed. However, the Parish Council is in this case more than happy to support the local community's wish for the current proposal to be refused. The plot can accommodate a larger house than the one being replaced, and the PC has never been opposed to contemporary design, but this proposal goes too far and does not respect its context. As the design panel observed, a super yacht is a movable form of transport rather than a permanent building in a fixed setting. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Corbett. Are there any questions for clarification, please? And that is Councillor Kenny, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Councillor Corbett. I was just trying to find out in the report, where are you in terms of getting a neighbourhood plan for this area? And would this be a special character in your plan?
Well, hopefully it might have been, but already some of the damage has been done with these overlarge rebuilds, Councillor. I think the parish council has taken the view that a neighbourhood plan's still got to be consistent with the development plan, the Cornwall local plan, and the policies exist within the Cornwall local plan in terms of infills and such like, and maintaining the character of the area. That this one actually could be reviewed or could be deemed to be contrary to those policies.
So I've seen the photograph that you sent through, but it's not actually. Is that actually the same area?
Well, it's not quite the same. It's up on the headland. It's probably about 300 metres away. But the point of the photograph was simply to bring to your attention and the committee's attention the effect of these overlarge rebuilds. The house that's nearing completion is the equivalent of about 2 or 3 of its neighbours. That house is only 2 stories. This is going to be 4, plus the balconies. That's the point the parish council is seeking to get over to the committee.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
I see no further questions. Would you concur, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
Thank you then. Councillor Corbett, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Goodbye.
Goodbye. And we move on to hearing from Jason Jarvis, who is the agent for the application, speaking in support. Can you hear us, Mr. Jarvis?
Chairman, if Mr. Jarvis could press *6 to unmute his telephone, please.
Can you hear us?
Hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear us?
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear us, Mr. Jarvis?
I can do. Hello.
Hello. Mr. Jarvis, thank you for joining us. You have 3 minutes to state your case and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The design does not conflict with the Cornwall local plan or the intentions of policy 12, which is all about design. In particular, the character of the proposal echoes the varied nature of, as you can appreciate, the individual properties in Morgan Porth with lots of replacement dwellings. The building scale works with the existing contours and levels, but gives a single story to Tree Dragon Road, stepping down within the gradient of the site, which is similar to nearby properties. Hopefully you will have seen the drawing which we sent you. It's a very important drawing. It's a location plan, and it really sets out the mass and scale comparison to the variety of replacement dwellings in Morgan Porth. You can see the street is actually quite small in comparison to others. And also a very important factor, when you compare the footprint of the proposal over the site area, the retreat only occupies 12%, while the adjacent site, Dinar, is 17%. The one behind, for example, Mansell Cottage, is 20%. So clearly it is in respect of the landscape. The layout provides all-inclusive access. You've got a lift on all sorts and all floors. The height of the proposed building is 0.15 metres less than the existing ridge of the existing building, and the basement level is only 1.4 centimetres below Dinehar level. There is 11 metre fall between the higher and lower road, and the basement level to the third floor is only 9.6 metres. The fourth floor, which people mention, is only to facilitate the access from the high levels to get level access into lift placement. The mass of the proposed building is similar to Dinar, except our proposal is actually 1.2 metres less in width.
Sound is not great, Chairman.
The open space either side.
Can we just stop a minute, Mr. Jarvis? We'll give you the time back. I don't know if perhaps you've moved a bit further away from the phone or something, but it's a slight distortion coming in.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, that's better. Emma, can you start? Give Mr. Jarvis the moments that he's lost.
Yes, Chairman, I've paused it, so if he wants to restart.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Jarvis, it was only a couple of sentences.
Oh, okay, so start from the beginning, shall I?
No, thank you. It was just, I heard all of it, really, didn't you? What about the rest of the committee?
Chairman, I heard it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anybody who is suggesting we should hear it all again?
No, Madam Chair, I had a whole. We got to the bit about the levels,
Yes.
comparing the
Okay.
levels with each other.
Yeah. So if you could just go back to that, Mr. Jarvis, and Emma, if you could adjust slightly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, the design reflects the seascape and the landscape setting through the use of building form, external media spaces, materials, and extensive wildflower green roofs, where we've got bird boxes, bats, thus providing a net gain in biodiversity. There's no overlooking. The external curve inward-looking terraces have been designed to concentrate outlook towards the sea. We have 1.8 metre high privacy screen on the northern and southern external terraces. We have small windows serving bathroom en suites, which have obscure glazing on the north and south side, and blue sea properties over 40 metres away and located not directly behind. There's no overshadowing because we're only 1.5 metres wider than the existing dwelling, therefore no harm to properties. I think it's important to remember there is our proposal sweeps with the landscape and terrain with graceful curves, while the materials reflects the strata of the landscape with high quality earthstone source materials. And when viewed, because of the curvature of the building, the actual mass and the bulk would be seen less compared to other flat roof boxes which seem to be appearing elsewhere over Morgan Wharf. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Jarvis, please? Councillor Kenny.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Jarvis. I'm looking at the design panel's comments, and I just wondered what changes did you make to the design as a result of what they said? I'm particularly concerned about the prominent external decks.
Okay, we have we've included a lift to be all inclusive. We have reduced the size of the building. We've reduced by 1.8 meters, 0.8 meters high in height. We've reduced the decks. We've shrunk all the decks inwards. We've changed the configuration so forth. The layout works better. We've taken off the northern stair tower on the building. So overall, when you go through the DRP comments, we've addressed all those points within that. So we've listened and learned from those comments.
Can you explain what you mean by the decks going inwards?
But yeah, so what we've done, we've pulled the decks, reduced the overall areas and the overhang of those decks inwards, so they're not so projecting out so far.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mould, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello. It seems to me that looking at this build, it is a very distinctive shape, and a very distinctive shape compared to everything else in the vicinity. So can you just explain how you feel that actually marries into the street scene and the continuity of form along that stretch, please?
Yes, when you look from Tree Dragon Road, it's only a single-storey building, and that'll be all dressed in local stone. And as was pointed out in the presentation by the case officer, the heights are in comparison to others, and we're slightly lower than the existing ridge of the building. So from that context side, we're actually probably better. Looking from the seaward side, we've done some visuals, and it pretty well nestles into the landscape like other properties. And you'll find that the curvature will actually improve. It is a exemplar. It's the exemplar style building, but the material and the form we believe suits the landscape in terms of the strata of the landscape being pulled in and so forth to the design.
Yeah, that's sort of my point. So when you're looking at this from the beach and up, it is such a statement house, albeit with good stonework and all the rest of it. It is that sort of statement house bit that I think that's how you think you marry it in. I'm sorry, I'm sort of losing myself here, but it is this statement shape and size of a house that I think is causing the concern, and the prominence of those balconies and what they're actually looking at it from the seaward side. So you would still argue, you still think that is in keeping with the square, with the boxes you've got either side and the contemporary houses around?
I think the reality is, as we all know, Morgan Port has got a whole variety of buildings and materials, shapes and forms. As you probably know, this is responding to the context, to the seascape, and the form. You know, the view east towards sea, and then for the views are that way, including the decks, which are really amenity spaces. And don't forget, they do step down. Actually, in fact, most of the decks are lower in terms of the landscape, so they are less visual. And the beauty is that the form of the building will reflect the seascape and the local, the form of the landscape, because the landscaping area does curve round into Morgan Port and around. So the whole building reflects that in terms of the form and materials.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Quick question from me, please, Mr. Jarvis. You told Councillor Kenny that you've moved the decks inward. By how far, please?
I think we're moving on for about metre to 1.5 metres of cabin inbound on all decks.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I see no other questions. Again, can you confirm, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, nothing at the moment, Chairman.
Thank you. Then we move on. I'm very sorry. Thank you, Mr. Jarvis. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We move on to hearing from the divisional member, who's Councillor Fitter. Hello, Councillor Fitter. Are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman.
Hi, John. Councillor Fitter, you know the rules better than I do. You'll be asked to sum up after 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Members, you've heard the representation from St Morgan Parish Council and Mr Cook, who was speaking on behalf of a number of concerned residents. I have to say I fully concur with their comments. The principle of development of the site is accepted, and that, of course, is not the issue. In my view, after a great deal of thought and taking on board the comments of the applicant, who I've spoken to, and the residents, who I've also spoken to, as well as the balanced report from your officer, it is that this redevelopment is, to coin a phrase, a bridge too far. Paragraph 3 of the officer's report, page 53, states the proposal will bring character change to the plot. The replacement dwelling is a much larger in scale than the dwelling it replaces. It does not include features typical to other homes within Morgan Port, such as hips, gables and pitched roofs, and makes the observation whether or not this design is appropriate to this site is subjective. The officer feels it is, and those that are objecting feel it is not. My view, members, as set out in paragraph 15, page 56 of your report, is that this application fails this test that is set by policy 12 of our local plan. The quality in design is something that I know members you will consider very carefully when concern such as you have heard today are brought to your attention. It is for my part, it is being of an appropriate scale, density, layout, height and mass with a clear understanding in response to its landscape. I do not believe, members, that this concurs, this application, with that statement in our local plan. If you believe this development fails this test, then I respectfully ask you to recluse the application as set out. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And that concludes my submission.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitter. Very concise. Are there any questions for Councillor Fitter, please? Councillor Kenny.
Yes, good afternoon, Councillor Fitter. Again, I'm looking at the architect design room panels report and the changes. Do you think that the changes that have been made to the design, which clearly have been quite considerable, have made it better at all?
No, the design unfortunately fails to test that it is not in itself as a design suitable for this location. It is, and I don't want to be sort of flippant about it, it is a bridge too far. It is testing the designs in which you can go. No one, at least, well, I'm certainly not against modern design, but we have to be careful about how far we take those boundaries. So I'm sorry to say that drawing them in 1 metre, the promenade decks, no, it is just too much and too massive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. I see no other questions for Councillor Fitter. Again, can you concur, please, Vice Chairman?
I agree.
Thanks. Then thank you, Councillor Fitter, and we move on, please, colleagues, to questions for the Planning Officer. Are there any questions for the Planning Officer, please? Councillor Kenny.
Good afternoon, Sam. As you can tell, I'm probably on a theme here. Looking at the report by the Architects Design Panel, I mean, some of the things they talked about was overlooking of adjacent houses. Do you feel that the changes that have been made have actually resolved that problem?
Yeah, hi, Councillor Kenny. Yeah, so we obviously understand the comments from the Common Design Review Panel, largely negative. But there has been response to that. It should be set out in one of the paragraphs of the report, which kind of highlights the changes that have occurred following that. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the
paragraph 13, Sam. 13,
which should go through the changes that have occurred. We believe those changes have responded to the comments of the Common Design Review, and that's why we are minded to support the scheme.
And one of the concerns they had was the flat roof at the top, which with permitted development rights could be developed. Has that been resolved at all?
Yes, so in terms of, I think it was the concern about overlooking about people walking out onto from the top story.
Yeah, the concern was that it was going to be only too easy to develop something on the top. Once they'd got planning permission through development rights.
In terms of
it's on page 72. The most concerning deck is the top floor of the building.
Yeah, I think that largely relates to the use. So people using that space to use as recreation to the dwelling. I they're going to be using that, and that's obviously going to allow for some overlooking. We have added conditions. So there's a ceiling roof on the top 2 floors, and there is no door that opens out onto that space, so that space shouldn't be usable. We've conditioned that as such. So those 2 floors are only used for maintenance, i.e. of the ceiling roof or any structural change that needs to be had. But yeah, there is a condition that stops the use of that.
Yes, but what they're saying is that you could, with permitted development, I think where I'm coming from is that this one particularly, I would want to, if it was permitted, I would want to see no permitted development rights on it, because it's just too easy to develop that top floor within the whenever the balance is. Okay, thanks, Sam.
Thank you. I've got Jane Asprey wishing to come in. Jane, please.
Hi, I noted that there was reference to those new PD rights, but they are restricted to any dwelling houses that are constructed before the 1st of July 1948 or after. So this development would not, the permitted development rights would not apply to this development, if that makes sense. So
are you saying that there are no permitted development rights, and any change to the top floor they would have to get a new planning application?
That's right, yeah. They wouldn't be able to add an extra 1 or 2 stories on top of this under PD.
No, I didn't know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's helpful, Jane. I see no other questions for the Planning Officer. Again, sorry, Vice Chairman, can you confirm?
Yes, I can confirm at this moment, Chairman.
Thank you. Then, just before we move into debate, can I ask Gavin, would you like to come in and give the committee a kind of steer on what they should and shouldn't be considering here?
Thanks, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. I think everything you've been discussing is on point. It's about whether or not this dwelling fits into the context of the surrounding settlement. If you think it does, it's something we could support. If you think it doesn't, it's something that we shouldn't support. Policy is very much in keeping with that viewpoint as well. It states that innovative design should be supported, but with the important caveat, provide that it fits in with the character of the surrounding, in this case, settlement. So when you're looking at this scheme, what I'd encourage you to do would be to ask yourself the simple question: does it fit in with the character of the area? You've heard people that think it does, and you've heard others that think it doesn't, and each view, I think, is understandable and well reasoned. So please stay where you are thinking. I think that's the right track. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Right, into debate then. Who wishes to start, please? Councillor Mole, thank you. And then
thank you, Madam Chair. I'm afraid this house doesn't, for me, it doesn't do policy 12. It's the shape. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't sit into the context of the surrounding area at all. And if you're looking at that up from the beach, it is such a standout statement house. I find it hard to think that you could look up there and look at the view in front of you, and for this property not to stick out as being so different from everywhere else. And I always worry about precedents, because I come from somewhere where I have probably got one of absolutely everything, and I do have, in fact, a hotel based on something similar to a ship. And when you look at that from the coastal path, it is although a much bigger building, it very much is a statement building. So whilst I'm happy to listen to others, at this point in time, unless I can be convinced otherwise, this doesn't do it for me. This is a statement house, and I would like to see it more in keeping with the design around. I just think it's too far removed from everything in the vicinity for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mole. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, can we have a look again at the artist's impression of what it's going to look like from the coast? Because I think there was quite a good picture on that to see whether, and I'm coming very much where Councillor Mould is. Does this really fit in? Or will it stick out like a sore thumb? So if we could have a look at that display, I would be very grateful.
I think it'd be helpful to keep the picture up, actually.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Wasn't that one? It was.
There's this one, and
yeah, that's it.
So this one, sorry, or the first one?
That one, I think, and the one next to it was similar, wasn't it? Except it was darker.
Yep. I'm happy to flip between them as you are.
Right, thank you.
I can keep it up just for reference.
Yeah. What's the difference between those two pictures?
They're just from different viewpoints. So that's the existing, and that's
from the beach. Yep.
And I think that's probably from the southwest coast path, from my understanding of the area. And then again, that just shows existing and proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Could you leave the one up from the beach, please, Sam, because that's the point that's been made so far.
Yeah, that's
right,
fine.
Thank you. Who wishes to add to the debate, please? Come on, we must have some opinions.
Chairman, Councillor Jewell has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Right, Councillor Jewell. And then Councillor Alvey.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Yes, I mean, yeah, I'm looking at it here now. Yeah, it is a statement building, but some of you on the committee know only too well what a statement building we have in Falmouth called the Liner, and I would say the Liner is probably 10 times the size of that, and it's still got through on planning. There we go. And some of the councillors had one recently which I was trying to object to, but they seem to think that it wouldn't stick out, but it is certainly going to stick out. It is tricky. It is a tricky one. That is the best view of it. It is totally different to the others, but it's not huge. Like I said, not compared to what we got at Falmouth. But I'll leave to see what the other committees say. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jewell. Sorry, Councillor Alvey. I realised we've got Councillor Martin before you, and then Alvey, then Simmons. So lovely, everybody's coming in now. Councillor Martin, you're next, please.
Thank you, Chair. My concern is not concern. My consideration is that this area seems to have a plethora of statement buildings from different decades, different styles over the last probably half century. I think this one maybe slightly a step beyond, but I think it's appropriate because of these the variety of styles within this area. Because of its scale, I don't think it's too large to intrude on that landscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Alvey, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm tending to come down on the side of agreeing with Councillor Mould and Councillor Kenny on this, and looking at it, I think what sticks out to me is the fact that this building is all around curves, whereas the others are some flat roofs, some pitch roofs, but everything is far more angular, and so it would stand out incongruously from the other buildings in the settlement, to my mind. So yes, I'm coming down on the side of it's that step too far, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Councillor Alvey. Councillor Simmons, and then Vice Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think I'm coming down with Councillor Alvey but it's just it is that step one too far. It's like all the other buildings were all squared off, and this is just got curves, and I just think it's just out of character for that area.
Right, thank you. Vice Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm of the opposite view, really. This building, in the context that we're looking at here, is far smaller than 3 to the right-hand side that I can see. They seem to be quite extensive, especially the one to the far right of the picture. So I think the mass of this sort of rounded building is nowhere near as much, and I don't think it's oversized for that amount of area. I think it fits in quite well. It is a modern design, but I think design does change with time. We've seen it in Newquay, we've seen it in other places, and I don't really see a reason for turning it down because it is a more modern design. So I will be in support of this, Chairman.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much, Vice Chairman. Now, I believe there's some hands raised, which is not showing. Here we are. So, Councillor Brown.
Yes, Madam Chair. I can be very brief. I think all we need to do is to go back to the contribution to the debate that was made by Mr. John Cook on behalf of residents. I thought he presented an excellent planning set of reasons for refusal, and I hope we will refuse it en masse for those reasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, can you see, are there any other hands raised? That's not showing on my screen.
Chair, Councillor Dyer has his hand raised, so does Councillor Flashman.
Right, right, Councillor.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
I thought we were advised to put a tick in the box if we wish to speak. Can it be clarified, please?
You were asked to put a cross in the chat box because that we can see clearly. The raised hands, that doesn't show clearly. I've just got a raised hand next to something saying +18 and
Agreed.
Yes. Yeah. So, right, Councillor Dyer, you're next, please. Councillor Dyer, are you there?
Yeah, I think you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes, it is a very controversial application, but as your Vice Chairman said, this area is full of what one could call controversial applications. And on a personal basis, because Cornwall has such a high rainfall, I'm not in favour of flat roofs, but I can see they go in this vicinity. But it's a very apt application for this committee to consider, and I think on a personal basis I would be prepared to hold my hand up to say this is a little bit too far. I support the view of the parish council. They're the people on the ground that know the scene more intimately than any of the rest of us. And my gut reaction is to go along with Mr. Cook and the parish council and to say we should be turning this down. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dyer. Councillor Flashman.
Yeah, good afternoon. I don't think I'll be able to speak on this application because I was a late arrival. Can Jane Asprey, can our legal officer clarify, please? Whether Councillor
it's Emma Coe, Democratic Officer. Councillor Flashman is entitled to ask a question, but he's not a committee member of today's meeting.
No. Did you wish to ask a question, Councillor Flashman?
Yeah, no one's notified me that I'm not needed today, so I'll pull out of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Right, well, we've had quite a lot of opinions, but we need to move towards a vote because it seems to be pretty much a binary choice here. Councillor Kenny.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. I'm going to stick my head above the parapet. I don't know what's going to happen if this goes to appeal, but I think there's enough against it that I am prepared to propose that we refuse it on the basis of it doesn't fit into the character of the area. I don't think we can pick up the overlooking aspects because that seems to have been resolved. So I will say it doesn't fit into the character of the area.
I'm happy to second, Madam Chair, along those lines. I don't think it fits with policy 12. I think it doesn't fit with the street scene well, and that the bulking and massing don't fit with policy 9. And I'd like to go with the parish council's recommendation. I thought Councillor Cook brought their case very well.
Thank you. So that's a proposal for refusal by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Mould. Just before we go to the vote, Gavin, did you wish to say anything about the policy linkage?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I've been listening to what you're saying. I think if you were to go down that track, which of course you're more than entitled to do, my wording would be reading something like this: the proposed new home, by reason of its siting, height, scale, design and overall appearance, fails to promote local distinctiveness and would appear as a prominent, discordant and jarring feature within the context of the surrounding development. The application is therefore not sustainable development and is contrary to the aims and intentions of policies 1, 2, 12 and 23 of the Cornwall Local Plan, and paragraphs 8, 122, 127, 130 and 131 of the MPPF. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kenny, are you happy to accept that?
Words out of my mouth. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mould, are you happy to accept that wording?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Right.
No other indications, Chairman.
No. Wait a minute. There's a hand raised, but I can't see who it is.
I think it's Councillor Dyer.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor.
Sorry.
Sorry,
ma'am. I've taken that out.
All right. Thank you. Yep, it's gone. No, it hasn't.
Oh, bother.
No, it's still there, Councillor Dyer.
Oh,
We'd better get that hand down before we go anywhere near any voting. Yeah, right. Thank you. Right. We have a proposal for refusal. Words just used by Gavin, around out of character of the area, proposed by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Mould. Emma, would you like to take the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. It will be a roll call vote if you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alvey.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull.
Abstain.
Councillor Dyer.
For.
Councillor Greenslade.
Against.
Councillor Jewell.
For.
Councillor Kenny.
For.
Councillor Martin.
Against.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
Councillor Mould.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the motion to refuse is being carried by 9 votes in favour with 2 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Emma. Right, we've taken quite a long time on that one, but we'll move on before we even think about a break to the next agenda item, which is PA 2010-849, Mr. D. Shepherd, Creek Bank Road from Marblehead Cottage to the Old Barn, Strongett Point, Fiocc. Proposed first floor extension, external alterations and formation of a vehicular access. The case officer is Sophie Rogers. Are you there, please, Sophie? Over to you, please, Sophie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Brilliant. Right. So, good afternoon, everybody. This is an application to extend and alter an existing property called Creek Bank, which is located on Strongett Point in Fiocc. The key issue with the scheme would be whether or not the proposal causes greater harm to the character of the area, which is designated as an AONB, than the extant permission, and if so, is that harm significant enough to warrant refusal? I have a verbal update which I thought I'd give you prior to me going into all of the slides. It relates to comments which I've received from the AONB unit to the revisions. So they've said that they recognise and welcome the modest beneficial change proposed by the revised proposals on the 11th of February, with the areas of tile hanging replacing some of the timber cladding. The latest change to the proposals, which were submitted on the 9th of March, also indicate the presence of vertical louvres on some of the west-facing windows. Where these are present, these are likely to provide some mitigation for the very extensive areas of glazing that faces the creek. There is no information provided to regard of their materials nature, whether or not they're fixed or sliding, or how they will be deployed to be effective in the mitigation of the effects described in the rest of their consultation. So in response to that, the agent has said that the louvres will either be fixed, they'll be constructed of either a natural hardwood or finished in a muted colour to match the windows and doors, and that they'd be happy to deal with that under a condition for materials. So that's the end of the update, in as much that the officer recommendation still remains to support the proposal as set out. So getting back to the site description, you can see here the proposal is on the west side of a peninsula which faces the Strongett Creek. Views of the property are given from the eastern side from Strongett Passage, so down by quite a well-used pub on this side, and there's a footpath which goes all the way along this foreshore here. You can see over on this side the water is known as an SPA and it's also a SAC. So right, next slide. This shows that the property is within an existing settlement. There are tree preservation orders on the site, although the context appears to be different to what's there than what's shown on the map. So this is an aerial shot to show the existing site. There is water access, which is past a house which has been built in the garden under a 2016 permission. This is the site here. Right. This is the proposed site plan for the for the proposed extensions to the existing house, and here is on the lower part of the screen. You can see the outline of the existing bungalow in relation to how the proposal wants to extend the property. So with regards to the extensions, it is a first floor extension, and it is turning a bungalow which has got a pitch roof into a property that has got flat roofs and an additional floor. Though you can see here on the eastern elevation, there's an outline which is dotted in pink to show the outline of the existing bungalow. And with regards to the scheme, you can see how the existing chimney tops, the proposal is not proposed to go any higher than those existing chimneys. There's also an extant permission which has been kept alive through the building out of the property in the garden, and that red line which is here shows the outline of that existing consent for a replacement dwelling. So that's here. The west elevation is the elevation which will be seen from the water side, and this is where the concerns that have been raised by the AONB unit and the local member have been concentrated on. The revisions have included these timber louvers and slate hanging to the upper floor of the building to help mitigate any perceived harm to the AONB. So also along here they've got privacy screens, that's obscurely glazed glass here for their balcony. So this shows the floor plan. The ground floor area is considerably larger than the upper floor, which is a much more modestly sized area, and the balconies are purely to the western side to overlook the creek. This plan shows the extant permission, which was for a replacement dwelling and for a new dwelling in the garden, and it's this dwelling here which has been built out. So this is what the current bungalow was proposed to be knocked down and replaced with, and this is a photo montage to show what the extant permission has allowed. So you can see obviously there's two gable ends which are highly glazed, along with a lot of glazing in the central section through that full height glazing here, and then the large square here on the upper floor. So this is the site as viewed from the water. This is the property which has been built out through the extant permission at Lower Creek Bank, and this is where the existing bungalow is. It's quite distinct in that you can see the triangular roofs, and then that is the height of the chimneys. So this is just a wider shot from the same waterside location. Again, that shows that's the house that has been built out, and this is the site. So it shows it within the context of all of the other properties on that peninsula. This is just a closer up view of the site. So balance of considerations. The proposed extensions are considered to be acceptable in terms of their scale, massing, form and design, and materials within the sensitive waterside setting that is part of a designated landscape, but taking into account the varied context of the houses in the locality. The proposal is judged to cause no greater harm to the AONB than the extant permission, and therefore the case officer recommendation is to approve as set out. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. We don't have any residents speaking in objection, but we do have Dr. Colin Blake of Field Parish Council speaking in objection. Is Dr. Blake with us, please?
I am.
You are, and you're a little bit faint, Dr. Blake. I don't know if you could speak a little bit closer to the phone or speak up a little bit.
I'll speak up.
Thank you. Dr. Blake, you have 3 minutes and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Parish Council strongly oppose this application, which does not in any way enhance or conserve the AONB, and it is against policies LS1, LS2 and D1 of the FEOC Neighbourhood Development Plan. The Parish Council's policy on design emphasises the aspects of sensitive scale, siting and use of materials in order to respect the AONB status of the area. The cumulative effect of development in this area is contrary to the protected status of the AONB. The proposed development sits on the skyline and is highly visible from the creek, which is well used as an amenity area, and from the opposite side of the creek. Its rectilinear linear design with glazed balconies significantly increases the mass of the building and does not respect the design of the properties in its surroundings. In 2013, the planning officer and planning committee rejected a plan to build a property in the garden and develop the existing bungalow. This later went to appeal. The main reason given by the committee at that time and the case officer was that it was considered that the resulting building development would appear from the water and creek beyond as a 3-storey property, and as such would be very, very prominent in the landscape by reason of its increase in height and mass. The proposed rectilinear linear design will further accentuate this. Surely it is our responsibility to ensure that built structures in these very sensitive and precious environments are recessive and secondary to the landscape when viewed from a distance and not pinnacles of excess. The proposed fenestration is excessive, not recessed as it was in the permitted development, and will cause significant light pollution, and together with the glass screen balconies will increase the visual impact and create overlooking issues. The proposed development would fail to be recessive in the natural environment or respond to the high residential amenity characteristics of the area, adversely impacting on the quality of the designated AONB, contrary to the aims and intentions of the MPPF, Cornwall Local Plan strategic policies and the FEOC Neighbourhood Development Plan. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Blake. Are there any questions for Dr. Blake, please? Just give it a moment for them to come through. I've got just one then, Dr. Blake, and that is about the extant permission. You're saying that you prefer that building.
As a council, we did because we feel that this rectilinear linear design, which we've been seeing all over the place in the AONB, I'm afraid, the massing of that design. It increases the massing dramatically.
But you're saying that design is all over the place in the AONB?
I know, yes, but the difference here is that it is a skyline development and with a building underneath, and we've seen it. There's a classic case in Phil Creek, at Penpole, where the two buildings merge and it looks like a 4-storey building.
Right, thank you. I see no further questions. Would you concur, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
Thank you. Then thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Blake.
Thank you.
And we move on to Gilly Slater, who's the agent for the application, speaking in support. Are you there, Gilly Slater?
I am, yes, hello.
Smashing, thank you. Again, I think you'll need to speak up just a little bit, please.
Okay.
You have 3 minutes and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, councillors. I should point out, first of all, that I'm not actually agent for the application and that I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant. The key consideration here relates to the extant permission for the large replacement dwelling granted at appeal in 2014. This remains valid in perpetuity as the development has commenced and therefore provides a significant material planning consideration as a fallback position. The approved replacement dwelling is significantly larger than what is proposed here, comprising a 2-storey property with 2 large double-height, fully glazed elements to the west elevation, along with a 2-storey gable end to the east elevation with 2 large windows. In comparison, the proposed scheme has significantly reduced massing to all elevations, particularly the east and west, which are most prominent from public viewpoints and the wider AONB. The glazing to the west elevation is reduced by over 25% from that of the approved replacement dwelling. The reduced glazing, massing and height are clear improvements over the approved replacement dwelling, resulting in a reduced impact on the AONB as well as reduced potential for overlooking. The objection from the Cornwall AONB unit doesn't give consideration to the extant planning permission for the site, basing the assessment purely on the change in appearance of the current situation. Whilst accepted that the proposed alterations would change the appearance of the dwelling, the changes would be far less harmful than that of the approved replacement dwelling. Again, it's reiterated this fallback position is of vital importance, being a significant material planning consideration in the determination of this proposal. The dwelling is sufficiently distant from neighbouring properties to avoid harm from overlooking or overbearing impact. It is pertinent to note the reduction in massing over that of the approved replacement dwelling, such that the proposed work would result in less visual harm than what has already been approved. In summary, significant weight should be given to the extant planning permission for a replacement dwelling on the site. This is the starting point for the decision-making process, as this is what can be lawfully constructed. In allowing the appeal, the inspector did not consider the scale, contemporary design, or neighbour amenity impacts to be of sufficient concern to warrant refusal. The proposed development is reduced in scale and massing over that of the approved dwelling, and is a sufficient distance from neighbouring properties to avoid adverse impacts on neighbour amenity. As such, the proposal is entirely acceptable and should be approved without delay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, please, for the speaker? I see none coming through, Vice Chairman. Do you?
I agree. None at the moment.
No. Just give it a moment then, and we'll say thank. Here we are, Councillor Mould.
Madam Chair, a delay. Thank you. So can I just ask, the extant permission that is there, am I correct in thinking you've indicated that that is a bigger massing of what you are proposing? So what has materially changed in between the two buildings that this should be more acceptable?
So I think as part of the submitted plans, there was an outline of the extant permission shown on one of the earlier versions. I don't know if the case officer is able to show that on screen. But basically it shows that the sort of current proposal in using a flat roof, it does reduce the height and significantly reduces the massing when viewed from the west. It also reduces the glazing quite significantly. So it was 25% before the timber louvers were proposed. So yeah, the glazing concern is sort of overcome quite significantly by this proposal.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, we've got the slide there now. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll ask for the slides to go up when we're debating. Right, I see no other questions coming through.
I agree.
Thank you. Then we move on to hearing from Councillor Alvey. You know the ropes, Councillor Alvey. You'll be asked to sum up after 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Jackie. Before I start, can I just ask Sophie to put up either the aerial view or the site map? Next one up, the next slide up, the one before that would be better. That's it. Yeah, ideal. No, that's no. You shot again.
The one. No, that's it.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. So, colleagues, before addressing the specific concerns relating to this application, it's important to explain the wider context around it. Your decision today has the potential to set precedent for at least 2 other existing permissions along this creek side, subject to live applications for controversial amendments. One application, like this one, also originally approved on appeal, is just 2 doors down at Tarn Eden. The third application is 7 doors down, again approved despite public parish council and other stakeholder objections. These pre-2017 decisions, though recent in calendar terms, stem from a different era policy-wise. They all predate both the Cornwall Local Plan and the Neighbourhood Development Plan. They come from a time when a 5-year housing supply in Cornwall was nothing more than an aspiration. It's most unlikely that they would be approved today. However, notwithstanding any fallback position, you must now be considering the impact of today's application in the context of what is now significantly strengthened policy, particularly around resisting adverse AONB impact. It should be acknowledged that Sophie Rogers has worked hard to try to achieve a compromise acceptable to the applicant, the AONB unit and the parish council. Prior to calling this application to committee, and subsequently, I have consulted with the AONB planning officer, who confirmed that he has seen the latest drawings before you today, as you've heard from the comments that Sophie read out from him earlier. Importantly, he's also confirmed that he considers these plans more harmful than the fallback position. The appearance of the proposed development in combination with the recently constructed Lower Creek Bank will give rise to an appearance of tiered, horizontal and predominantly glazed development rising up the slopes to the ridgeline of Restrongut Point. The combination of these will very harmfully erode the existing character of the rising ground on the west side of the creek, which forms its setting, which fails to conserve or enhance the AONB over the fallback position of the original application. The AONB management plan specifically recognises the threat of development such as this to the designated landscape and provides policy to resist it. In this instance, objection on the basis of the harm to the designated landscape stems from the cumulative effect of other ongoing developments, the scale of this building, its conspicuous nature, and the extent of glazing giving rise to additional reflections and light spill. Its requirement of development within the AONB that it conserves and enhances the landscape and scenic beauty of this nationally designated landscape. Simply put, these changes to the agreed permission neither conserve nor enhance. Instead, they further increase the visual impact of an already intrusive and contentious permission. What was acceptable on appeal when the original permission was granted simply wouldn't be today, as recent appeal decisions have shown. The MPPF, Cornwall Local Plan and NDP requires that the AONB impact is given great weight in your deliberations today. On that basis, I urge you to refuse this application on the basis of adverse AONB impact, a decision that can be defended at appeal by referral to the MPPF, local plan and FIOC NDP, as well as the AONB management plan. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Alvey. I'm asking if there are any questions, but I already have Councillor Mould. Is yours a new cross in the box? Is that for a question?
No, Madam Chair, it was last time.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Jewell, do you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Alvey. So in your words, the stamp permission now, you don't think would go through the appeal process?
Had this permission that is the extant permission being submitted now with the current policy, it wouldn't have got to first base. It has been approved, regrettably, under appeal. However, that fallback position can't change. It's there, but it wouldn't now be approved. No.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny.
Well, carrying on with that theme, it's approved. So why do you think that this new plan, which is smaller, is worse than what's approved?
I am taking the advice of the AONB planning officer, who has assessed the fallback approved plan alongside these amended plans, including the two iterations that have come forward in February and March, which he concedes have improved matters, but he still is of the opinion that the fallback position, though regrettable, is still better than what is being proposed today.
Why? Because I can't see that that's the case.
It's his professional opinion that the glazing effect of this plan will be greater than that of the fallback plan. The fallback plan will also have an adverse impact on the AONB. We're not pretending that it won't. I'm accepting the advice of somebody who's a qualified landscape architect in expressing an opinion based on professional knowledge and training, that the fallback position, though regrettable, creates less adverse harm than the plans that are before you today.
Well, I'm going to be cross-examining the planning officer because I didn't quite pick up what the latest statement from the AONB officer actually was, because it sounded to me like it was a lot more favourable towards this renovation, but that's a discussion I'll have with the planning officer.
Me also, Councillor Kenny, because I'm rather confused about what Councillor Alvey has said, since they say that there's less glazing than the extant. But Jane Asprey, legal officer, is indicating that she'd like to come in. So Jane, can you come in, please?
Yeah, I think the point's already been clarified by Joanna, really, but I think we've got to be quite careful here because we're not here to determine the fallback position today. Thank you.
No, we're not, Jane, but I'm going to be asking the planning officer in a minute whether it would have gotten to first base under policy, because I find that a sweeping statement. Right, Councillor Mould, you're next, please.
Thank you. Yeah, a quick question for Martin. Martin, my understanding of this is that this application, given in the context of the building in the garden, is the issue here, because the two taken together, and although this might be lower and less glazing in the context of the one in the front, and it seems to me, but this seems to be the issue now, when you're looking at it from the creek, you've got a new build and a new build behind that, and it's the vision of those two together, whereas the extant permission possibly looks slightly different and differentiates between the two, rather than making these two buildings now look very similar and like one block. the original one might have given a bit of differentiation. Now, that's where I'm thinking, I'm understanding this, but I could be wrong. And is there any way that we could actually hear what the neighbourhood plan LS1, LS2 and D1 are, please? You may not have that. I suspect the case officer might have.
I have got a copy of the field neighbourhood plan here, if it helps. LS1, protecting and enhancing seascapes. Development will only be supported relating to creeks and coasts where it can be demonstrated that it will not damage the marine ecosystem, which isn't an issue here, and the quality of creekside landscape, which is. It would not result in the loss of or lead to encroachment onto beaches, which isn't the case in this one. But so it's really the quality of creekside landscapes. And which was the other policy that you wanted me to?
Well, hang on a minute. I don't think we want to have read out all of the policies. We can be questioning the planning officer in that in a moment. Would you like to give us the headline policy, Councillor Alvey, the second one, but not read the whole thing?
LS2, protecting and enhancing the landscape.
And D1?
And D1, bear with, D1, the design of all development, including new housing, should respect and reflect local character, identity, follow design guidance, and minimise impact of development on landscapes and provide mitigation for adverse impacts identified. Those are the headlines from D1 there.
Thank you.
Thank you. So perhaps I can just ask one. So just so I'm clear, please, Councillor Alvey, you're saying that although this is smaller than the extant permission, that it's got less glazing than the extant permission, you believe that it will have more impact?
I believe it will, by virtue of the, as Councillor Mould has picked up, it will give that impression of the building, the new building that's gone in below it, along with this, particularly now with the flat roof, it will look like one single large full four-storey development from the creek side. The other impact is that the glazing, although fairly extensive in the extent permission, because it's recessed slightly, it will not be quite so impactful in terms of the glare and
right.
Light.
Okay. Thank you. You've answered it. Thank you. I see no further questions for Councillor Alvey. Would you concur, please, Vice Chairman?
Has Councillor Mould spoken, Chairman?
Yes.
That's it then.
Thank you. Then we move into questions of the planning officer, please. Questions for the planning officer. Councillor Kenny.
Right. Sophie, you went very quickly through the latest statement from the AMB officer. Is there a statement in it somewhere that he says, but otherwise still, because he sounded like he was much happier with the changes that have gone in. What was his overall conclusion?
His overall conclusion was that he still perceives that there would be harm to the AONB from the proposal. He notified, basically his comments were exactly the same as what is been written in my report, other than the paragraph which I read out, saying that he can see that there has been improvements to the scheme through the incorporation of slate hanging and the louvres. But he was just concerned about how they were going to be.
Did he do a comparison of what with the existing permission, the fallback?
Yes, I can. Right, let's get it back. So, just share my screen.
Maybe I could jump in here, Councillor Kenny, Matt Stevenson. He didn't really draw a great deal of comparison between the extant permission and the permission being proposed now.
he, as you say, he referred to the glazing, but he didn't draw on the extant permission all that much, which obviously we would have to do when making a decision. So,
well, looking at this particular proposed elevation, the top left, which is the east, there's obviously, you can see the existing building is much larger. But
well, no, the pink dotted line is the existing, so that's here, and the extant permission is the red.
Yes. And what's the existing is?
Is the pink dotted line here.
Yeah. So on the other three diagrams, there doesn't seem to be that it seems to be. Is it still the same? That's the fallback we can see.
No, it's the pink is the existing dwelling on all four images. They've only shown the red of the extant permission on the top left one, not
so
on the other three.
We haven't got.
No, but I think you can extrapolate from that
that
it is smaller on all four elevations, but they've only done it on the east elevation for you.
And which one overlooks the creek?
The west.
West.
One with the glazing.
Yeah, that could be the one that we would like to see the outline of the existing one.
I think it'd be very similar to the east one.
Yeah. Can we have a look at, was there an artist's impression actually of the build in the creek, a photograph with an artist's impression of?
There's one of the extant permission, but not one of the proposal, which we're assessing today. So this is the extant permission.
There's no photograph of the creek with an artist's impression on it.
There's this, which is the extant permission.
It's not seen in context. Okay, thank you.
Can you? I'm sorry, butting in there.
That's what I had in mind.
Can you keep that photograph there for a moment of the extant permission? The montage. The photograph you've just shown, the photo montage. Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. Matt, I wonder if I could ask a question of the planning officer, whichever one of you, please. I'm finding this a very unusual application in that I can certainly see large amounts of glazing there and impact, and yet that is the image that we are being told the parish council and community favour rather than the application, and that this would not now be allowed under policy. I wonder if, Matt, you could just talk around those two differences a little bit, or Sophie, whichever of you really.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Maybe I can come in. Obviously, the principal change is the extant permission has a pitch roof and the proposal has a flat roof. That's probably the biggest change. Obviously, the proposal before you now retains some of the existing building as well, so there is some advantage to reusing the existing fabric rather than a complete new build. So that's probably the physical change. In terms of policy, yes, there's the local plan now, there is the updated NPPF, and obviously FEOC have made a neighbourhood plan. However, even when this was considered back in 2013, we've still obviously be giving significant weight to any harm to the AONB. AONBs have been around for decades, and they've always been designated landscapes that we've had to give more weight to in terms of their impact on them. That 2013 application was delegated refusal, so the case officer and the signing off officer considered that the replacement dwelling and the new build dwelling, obviously it was for two dwellings on that original planning application, did cause harm to the AONB and refused it in accordance with the policies at the time, which still required us to give great, significant weight to any impact on the AONB. As is usual, that went to appeal then, but the inspector found that it didn't cause harm to the AONB. It wasn't that he considered it caused some harm, but he could outweigh it. He actually didn't feel that those proposals for the two dwellings caused harm to the AONB, bearing in mind the vast differences in architectural styles, the very large plots in the area, and the built form of the peninsula. So on that basis, the appeal was allowed. It wasn't on the basis that it caused some harm that he could outweigh.
No, right, understand, thank you. And I wonder if, before we move on, although I've got Councillor Kenny coming back, but in a moment, Sophie, if you could put back the diagram of the application. So that's it, thank you, that's the one. So that you've now, the committee have seen the extant, the glazing, and now they're looking at this. Right, Councillor Kenny.
You jumped in, Chair, just as I got to my picture that I wanted to see, because all of these pictures are in the report, but there's a picture, a photograph of the creek with the existing building in, what it looks like today, that I would like to see again. Yeah, that's the one. So the flat roof they're talking about in front of it is where, Sophie? Was this one pre?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's here.
Oh.
So this is the existing new house in the garden.
So you would have to be at an angle to the left somewhere to see one on top of the other.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And perhaps we could go back to the application diagram that you just had there. No, not the extra. Not the extra. That's it. Thank you. The proposed elevations, because that's what people will be considering in a minute. Right. Thank you. I have some more questions for the planning officer. Councillor Jewell, please.
Sorry, that, Madam Chairman. Yes, Sophie, could you please bring up that photograph again with the photo? Is that taken from the Pandora Inn site? Because it's a very, very well used focal point of the area. Is that taken from the Pandora?
I believe it's taken from just along the footpath.
Or towards Weir a bit more?
Yeah.
Okay. Because like Councillor Kenny said, when you look at it from that angle, it's not quite as bad. Okay.
I went and walked along, and you can see on the right hand side of the photograph, that's the pontoon associated with the Pandora.
That's it, yeah.
And the site is here. So it's those two gables there.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You
Okay, thank you. But the footpath goes right along, yeah, I know.
Yes,
thank you.
it does.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you go back to the proposed elevations then, Sophie, and we'll move on. There are no further questions for the planning officer. Confirm, please, Vice Chairman.
Yes, Chairman, I can confirm.
Right, then we're into debate, please, everyone. And we start with Councillor Mould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can actually see why the parish council, putting in a business position, would accept the extant permission, because if you have these two flat buildings like this, one above the other, the light coming from both of those and the light pollution that comes from both of those, the extant permission, the glazing is recessed under a part of a pitch. So it's the worst of two devils for me, because although the extant permission is bigger, it's different in so much as you do get this difference of appearance. And I think this is where the parish council, and I can absolutely understand what they're saying, because if you're looking at it and you've got a flat building at the top which then moves up to another flat building, you've got all this coming at you at once, whereas the extant permission has shape and form which delineates between the two. So I'm happy to listen to the debate, but I could see why the parish would say the extant permission was, regrettably though bigger, more acceptable.
Thank you. Just before I bring you in, Councillor Kenny, Matt, I wonder if you would just have a moment to talk to the committee on really what they should be considering here. This is quite complex, isn't it?
Fine.
Matt Stevenson, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, well, I think the case officer's already set it out. You know, she's shown you the photographs and the plans for the extant permission. And really, if you refuse this, and obviously you got challenged, you'd have to demonstrate why you consider that the proposal would have greater impact on the area of outstanding natural beauty than the extant permission. It's as simple as that, really. You know, you've already been shown that it's smaller, it has similar amounts of glazing. Obviously the design has changed, so really I think it would just rest on whether or not you think that design change is that significant, that it would cause that much greater harm to withstand a challenge at appeal.
I think that's really helpful, actually, Matt. Right, Councillor Kenny, you're next, please.
if we were going from cold, then I wouldn't be approving this, but we're not. They've got the existing building, and you can see looking at and it's very rare that I disagree with the ANOB officer, other than the fact that he doesn't appear to have matched this design again, unless I've misunderstood it completely. He doesn't appear to have looked at it in terms of what the existing extant permission is, and I'd have been a lot happier then. So I don't see it. I mean, yes, in a certain angle you could get one against the other, but the pictures we're seeing, that isn't the case. And in fact, the other building is already a precedent for this type of build. Personally, I prefer pitch roofs to flat roofs. I hate flat roofs, but we've already got a building there that is with a flat roof. I cannot see this one getting through appeal. So regretfully, I will be going against the ANOB officer in this case.
Thank you. Councillor Jewell.
Yes, well, I'm on the same opinion as Councillor Mould. I think because the second permission, which was flat roof, which is built lower down, and now this one has gone for a flat roof, it does give the impression on certain, not all of them, but it will give in certain view angles, which is a public right of way opposite side the creek, a view of a very, very big building. So therefore, I recommend refusal on the grounds of design and massing. I know we're saying the massing is smaller than the extant permission, but the illusion will be from the other side, unless you knew it would blend in, you think, crikey, that's just one big building. So I think design first and foremost. I think the extant permission, it breaks up the existing permission in the garden, but this one on top now is going both flat, will be too much. The design and the massing, that's what I'm going to suggest, whether or not I can have some help. Well, just see if it get a seconder first. So that's what I think. Go review tool.
Just a minute. You are proposing
refusal on design.
And what about the negative? Whether you consider it not the impact on the AONB?
Well, yeah. I mean, in with the AONB officer as well, because there's still an objection as well. Yeah.
I'm happy to second that, Madam Chair, on the same grounds, and I think as far as the AONB, you know, we've got a permission on this site, and it seems to me that, you know, and as the lady stated before, they've got a fallback position that they can build, so we can expect that building to go there or something similar, and I think that is preferable to what we've got today.
Yeah. Okay. If I can have some help with policies, that'd be greatly.
Yeah, Matt, can you help with the wording? Liaise with Councillor Jewell, please, so that we can go to the vote on this one.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if Sophie wants to stop sharing her screen as well. In the meantime, yeah, I just listened to this. I think something along the lines of the proposal due to the design, scale and massing does not conserve or enhance the natural beauty and landscape character of the AONB, contrary to local plan policy 23, FIOP neighbourhood plan policy LS1, LS2, D1, the AONB management plan and the MPPF.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Councillor Jewell?
Yeah. Can we tie it in to say that the design and massing, when viewed with the extant permission that's already been built out,
that's not an extant permission. That's been built. The extant permission is the bit that we're looking at now.
Okay.
So I suppose you're saying in context of the area, but that's
context of the area. The context of the area that all fits in all right. I see what Councillor Mould says about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Thank you, because I actually do think that's where we're trying to get at. You know, had this build come along now, the first one, because we'd probably say okay, but because it's in the context of the one in front now, it doesn't fit. The extant permission fits better.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So we have a proposal for refusal proposed by Councillor Jewell, seconded by Councillor Mould, for the reasons impact on negative impact on the AONB, but around design and the policies that Matt has just read out. Emma, would you like to take the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. It'll be a roll call vote. If you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull.
Against.
Councillor Dyer,
For.
Councillor Greenslade,
Against.
Councillor Jewell,
For.
Councillor Kenny,
Against.
Councillor Martin,
Against.
Councillor Simmons,
For.
Councillor Mould,
For.
Councillor Thomas,
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the motion to refuse has been carried by 7 votes in favour with 4 against and no abstentions.
Thank you very much. Would you all like a 5-minute break?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah,
Fine.
right, okay. Let me see, what time is it now? Well, we'll say 10 minutes. We'll come back at 3 o'clock, yes?
Proper job.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Are you there, Emma?
Yes, I'm here. Do you want me to do a roll call to make sure everybody's back?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. I'll just do a quick roll call to make sure everybody's in attendance. Councillor Alvey.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
There.
Thank you. Councillor Bull. Councillor Dyer.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Greenslade. I'll come back to Councillor Jewell. Councillor Kenny.
Present.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Present.
Councillor Simmons.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Councillor Mould.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Councillor Williams has just left the meeting at the break.
Oh, okay, fine, that's fine. Councillor Greenslade, are you present? And Division Member Sally-Ann Saunders, are you present?
I am, Emma, thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So it appears it's just Councillor Greenslade at the moment we're waiting on.
Well, Councillor Greenslade is the Vice Chairman, so
Worth waiting for.
yeah, worth waiting for, but I'm wondering if we should give him a ring. Well, let's give it a minute.
Yeah, he was having technical problems earlier, wasn't he?
He was, wasn't he? Actually, you're right. He was, John. Let's get. Can we get someone to give him a ring, please, Emma?
Chairman, I'll give him a ring if you want to continue.
Well, I won't. I'll wait and hear the result of that.
Okay.
Given the rule about being in on the whole.
He's showing as being in the meeting. He's just is on mute, but he might be away from his screen.
Vice Chairman, Councillor Greenslade, are you there? No, I think a call is a good idea, please. Can you just confirm, Emma, that someone's calling him?
Chairman, I'm just calling him now.
Thank you. Councillor Greenslade? Just in case he comes back. No. Well, we've lost the Vice Chairman. That's not a good start.
Chairman, Councillor Greenslade is literally going back to his computer right now and should be able to respond to the technical check in just a second.
Thank you.
Come on, buddy.
Yeah.
Councillor Greenslade, can you confirm you're back from the break?
Yes, I'm back.
Thank you. Right. Well, historic moment, last ever application of this committee. So, PA 20-07150, O'Mahony Construction Limited, land southeast of 8 Wesley Terrace, Bodmin Road, Bilbury, Bugle. The proposed erection of 3 detached dwellings and the formation of new vehicular access. The case officer is Tracy Young. Over to you, please, Tracy.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share my screen. Thank you. Could you confirm that you can all see that?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Yes, yeah, fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks full planning consent for the erection of 3 detached dwellings and the formation of a new vehicular access on an undeveloped parcel of land on the northern side of Bugle. So the key considerations today are the principle of housing development in this location, the impact of the development on the character of the area, neighbour impacts and site constraints, particularly relating to surface water drainage. This slide shows the location of the application site in terms of its relationship to the settlement. This is the application site, and then obviously the the settlement of Bugle. This site plan is more detail, again showing the relationship of the site to the existing built development. Again, the application site. This is Wesley Terrace to the northwest. This is an aerial image of the application site. Wesley Terrace to the northwest. Sorry, does somebody want to interrupt, Chair?
No, I think it was a telephone call going on in the background.
Okay, I'll continue. So an aerial photograph of the application site. So you've got Wesley Terrace to the northwest, the sidings. This is Red Lane, which there's a public footpath that leads along here, and you can get back to the village. And then just off the bottom of the photograph is the railway station, and then obviously the settlement down to the southwest. This is just the existing topographical survey of the site. This is the proposed layout of the site. So this is the 3 detached dwellings. This is Wesley Terrace to the northwest. The separation distance between the proposed dwellings and those properties to the northwest equates to approximately 27 metres. Each property is provided with at least 80 square metres of private rear amenity space. There's parking and turning provided at the front of the properties for 2 cars, thus allowing vehicles to enter and leave the site in a forward direction. This is just the slide of the proposed elevations. The proposed elevations, including the use of materials, which is a mix of render and stone facing to the walls and natural slate to the roof, which reflects similar development in the locality. These are the floor plans, which comprise open plan living on the ground floor with internal access to the garage. First floor accommodation comprises 1 master ensuite, 2 double bedrooms and a smaller 4th bedroom or study, and a separate bathroom. So this is a photograph of the application site. This is Wesley Terrace in the background. This is the site here facing onto the A391. This is the road that leads up to Lockengate and then back this way towards Bugle. Again, looking back towards Bugle, so you've got the Springfields estate in the background. This is the application site where it bounds the A391. And then this is a parcel of land across the road which is currently up for sale with planning permission on there for 10 dwellings. I'll continue. So this slide shows the application site in context to the approved site across the road. So here's the application site, and then on this parcel of land here, which is this site outlined in red, planning permission was approved in 2020 for 10 dwellings. So you can see the relationship of the site to existing built development and proposed. And then it's a short presentation, this one. So the balance of considerations would relate to the introduction of residential development onto enclosed land, which is more affiliated with the settlement rather than the countryside. The suitability of the site being within an area susceptible to groundwater flooding. And on balance, the proposal is of a scale appropriate to the size and role of the settlement, given the size of Bugle and the range of facilities and services, oh, it's my phone now, services within the settlement to support future residents. So the recommendation is conditional approval for the reasons as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tracy. We don't have any residents speaking in objection, but we do have Councillor Gary Hooper of Trefhervan Parish Council speaking in objection. Hello, Councillor Hooper. Are you able to hear us?
Chairman, if Councillor Hooper could press *6 to unmute his telephone.
Hello, Councillor Hooper, are you with us? Hello, Councillor Hooper.
Councillor Hooper, could you press *6 to unmute your telephone, please?
Hello, good
That's better. Good afternoon, Councillor Hooper. Thank you for joining us.
thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right. You have 3 minutes and you'll to speak, to state the case, and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Treverban Parish Council maintain their objection that this is an overdevelopment of a small meadow that will transform the appearance of an area that is currently a terrace of established properties. This cannot be considered as rounding off. The proposed access onto a fast stretch of the A391 is the main approach to the village, with a junction that is notorious for a number of traffic near-miss incidents, recognised by the obligatory red speed markings on the road. It is very apparent that everybody is concerned about development on an area that has a history of flooding, of flood zone 1. This plot of land is bordered by a small underground river that is a boundary of Treverban and Roach parishes. The river catches the current surface water and is already prone to flooding and subsidence of the lane during adverse weather. The parish council has consulted with the West Country Rivers Trust, who stated that the method proposed for managing surface water of the properties with the storage and flow control release method is not a very progressive design. The trust is involved with the remedial work of the STAR project that is being undertaken to alleviate the flood risk from the nearby Molinis Moor through Luxillian Valley to St. Blasey. Paragraph 59 already concedes the percolation tests found groundwater at a depth of 0.3 of a metre. Therefore, the water needs to be attenuated to a suitable receptor. Paragraph 60 states that micro drainage software has been used to size the storage required. The flow rate will be controlled by a hydro brake flow control device, limiting the flow to an outlet. We wonder where the surplus water will eventually end up. The above paragraph 59 is relevant to surface water drainage. On the original application, paragraph 3.8 states that runoff rainwater will be dispersed to on-site soakaways. This is obviously not possible when the percolation test found groundwater at a depth of 0.3 of a metre. If this system fails or is overwhelmed by adverse weather conditions, it will only be seen when the ground around the properties become flooded. With all these flood risk issues, one must question whether likely homeowners would be able to get suitable insurance. Furthermore, how would the developer guarantee the management and maintenance of the drainage system for the life of the properties? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hooper. Are there any questions for clarification, please? I'll ask one a minute then, please, Councillor Hooper, while we see if any more come in. I know this area very well. It's quite marshy, isn't it? Would that be a fair description?
Yes, it would. Unfortunately, we haven't got any photographs to show you, but if you saw a photograph of it, you would see there are clearly reeds growing in the field.
I thought that's what I remembered. And the other thing, my other questioning about this is that it's a bit of a gateway entrance to the village.
Yes, it is.
It would impact on those very traditional cottages that have always been the entrance site. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. That is one of our concerns, as we stated to start with. There are traditional row of terrace there, which will be, these will be built in front of them, away from the natural building line. To be fair, there are newer development of Springfields on the opposite side of the road, but that's where it stops.
Yeah, I know it very well. Okay, thank you. I don't seem to have any other questions coming through. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman? Here we are.
Mould.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chair, behind. Hello. I was just on paragraph 58. The application site is in flood zone 1.
Yes.
So, but it is acknowledged, however, that information has been submitted from local residents showing the surface water in this locality. So this sounds like local people know the land better than some others, and it does flood reasonably, because I've driven past there and I'm sure I've seen water sitting there on a heavy rainy day. So clearly this has come from residents, I assume, that have submitted this information.
Yes, we've had concerns from local residents, and obviously a number of the parish councillors live within the area and they know this piece of ground.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mould. No further questions listed. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I can.
Then thank you very much for joining us, Councillor Hooper.
Thank you for listening to me. Cheerio.
Bye. And we move on to Chris Montague, who it says is the agent for the application. Is Mr. Montague there?
I am, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and you can hear us without having to be told to press *6. So that's a very good start. Right, Mr. Montague, you have 3 minutes to state your case, and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, there are no technical reasons, nor are there any sound planning reasons why this development should not be granted planning permission today. During the determination of the applicant of this application, the applicant has provided all of the relevant technical reports that have been requested. In respect to surface water drainage, local residents suggest that there may be a watercourse to the northwest of the application site. There is no watercourse flowing through the site, nor is the site within an area that's at risk of flooding. A surface water drainage scheme together with hydrology attenuation calculations have been provided. These documents show that there are solutions to deal with the surface water drainage, an attenuation tank which will control the discharge of surface water and will release it safely, which is the case in the adjoining Springfield estate. The council's lead local flood officer has accepted the recommendations of these reports and suggested a number of conditions be imposed on the granted permission. A soil contamination report has been submitted and recommends further on-site soil samples are taken. The standard conditions have been recommended by your environmental health officers in this respect. Ecological reports have been submitted which demonstrate that the proposal will not cause significant ecological harm. Revised drawings have been submitted to address the council's the highways officer's initial concerns regarding access and safety, which that officer is now satisfied with. From a planning point of view, as your officer said, the site is considered to be part of the village. Houses exist to the west and the north. Outline planning permission has recently been granted for 10 dwellings on the opposite side of the A391 road to the east of the site. Whilst the development may change the nature of this undeveloped site, the development will nevertheless be seen in the context of houses to the rear and side of the site, as well as the houses on the other side of the site. Of the road, sorry. The development complies with the requirements of the council's rounding off section of policy 3 of the local plan. The quantity and design of the development for the site are considered appropriate, providing suitable on-site parking, large private rear gardens, suitable separation distances between the proposed houses, and boundary fences ensuring privacy. There is a significant separation distance between the proposed houses and those which exist to the west, which meets with the separation requirements as set out in policy 12 of your local plan. Notwithstanding the comments from the parish council, it is evident that there are no technical sound planning reasons why this development should not be granted planning permission today. For all of these reasons, and for those set out in your officer's report, I respectfully request that you support the proposal as set out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montague. Are there any questions, please, for clarification? I'll give it a second or two. Right, Councillor Greenslade. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Quite a straightforward question, I hope. Mr. Montague, it's been stated by some that overlooking is one of the issues. Now, I believe I heard that the separation distance was 27 metres. Could you touch on that for us, please?
Quite correct, Councillor. It's set out in your officer's report. If I can just get to it quickly, sorry.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yes, it's set out in your officer's report in
Yes.
paragraph 3, Councillor, that the separation distance is 27 metres
Yes.
from the southeast of the dwellings in Wesley Terrace.
I just wanted to make sure it was mentioned, that was all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions coming through. Would you concur, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
Thank you. Then thank you very much for attending, Mr. Montague. I think, hello? My screen went blank then. I don't quite know what.
Still there, Chairman.
Okay, that's fine. Right, well, thank you. We now move on to hearing from the divisional member, who's Sally Ann Saunders. Councillor Saunders, you have 5 minutes to state your case. You'll be asked to sum up after that, please.
Good afternoon, thank you. To start with, I'd like to stress that the residents of Bugle are not in general NIMBYs. In fact, Bugle Village itself has seen some 59 new dwellings consented over the last 5 years, and dissent on this scale has been rare. Today's application, though, elicited a deal of comment from neighbours to the site, outlining concerns that the Parish Council have always felt deserved much serious consideration. Committee members will have no doubt read the comments submitted, which cover a range of issues, the most concerning of which relate to matters of flooding, drainage and subsidence due to a nearby watercourse and the prevalence of underground springs in the vicinity. Such is the degree of concern and the lack of confidence in the solutions that have been proffered that I have felt compelled to bring this application to committee. And so my arguments today will revolve around 2 main points. Firstly, the suitability of the site for development from a place shaping perspective, and secondly, its suitability given the inherent issues relating to drainage that would need to be overcome in order to provide good quality, trouble-free homes for the future. The site in question is located on the A391 at the northern entrance of the village of Bugle. This site, along with the water meadow beside it, represents the last green space to be seen before entering the village proper, and together they allow for an uncluttered vista across open countryside. Policy 12.1a of the Cornwall Local Plan states that we should be striving to develop in such a way that creates places with their own identity and promotes local distinctiveness, being of appropriate scale, density, layout, and with a clear understanding and response to the landscape and/or townscape in which they sit. It is our contention that in this case, the planners have not sufficiently considered the lasting impact that this development in this specific location, the entrance to the village after all, would have on the character of Bugle. To our mind, the site qualifies as neither infill nor rounding off. In character at present, it could be described as having the appearance of a village green. 1.66, page 23 of the CLP allows for this, stating that gaps can often provide the setting for the settlement or add to the character of the area, and suggests proposals should consider the significance or importance that larger gaps can make to settlements and ensure that this would not be significantly diminished. This application, though, seeks to materially alter that character by bringing the current building line forward, effectively reducing the open field that currently prevails and obscuring from view the modest terrace of homes that are far more in keeping with the general flavour of Bugle than the designs proposed. Therefore, we would also suggest that in relation to the CLP Policy 12.1b, this application does not provide continuity with the existing form and/or respect and work with the natural environment either. In the pursuit of good quality future homes, it could be suggested that these considerations are worth sacrificing. However, it is also our contention that given the issues highlighted most vociferously by its neighbours, this development, were it to go ahead, would place an undue burden on its future occupants, making them somewhat less than the quality homes generally desired. What can possibly be sustainable about that? Though excluded from flood zones 2 and 3, most every winter this piece of land and the water meadow beside it are seen to have standing water for weeks on end. The proliferation of rushes growing across the site attest to the high water table here, and indeed the percolation test carried out by the applicant submit that groundwater was found at just a depth of 0.3 of a metre. The drainage report seems to suggest that concerns over all this existing surplus water plus all future surface water can be mitigated for, One suggestion being to simply allow it to discharge to the nearby watercourse, thereby speedily moving it on its way. However, the irony of this stance is that less than a couple of miles away downstream of here, the council's STAR project is spending hundreds of thousands of pounds trying to do the reverse and slow down the flow of water from this upper catchment area in order to try and protect the communities of Luxillian and St Blaise from the existing threat of floods and the future effects of climate change. It is our contention, therefore, that allowing this piece of land to continue to do the work of a sponge, as it has always done, would serve the community far better and address the stated aims of the CLP Policy 26D, regards safeguarding of land where it is identified to be functional flood storage, and F, does not create avoidable future liability for maintenance for public bodies and communities, far more effectively than the proposed development can ever hope to. And so, in summation, I would respectfully ask the committee today to consider this statement. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. The planner's argument is that the concerns raised can be mitigated for. Our contention, put simply, is that problematic homes of the future are not worth sacrificing a site such as this for.
5 minutes, Chairman.
Committee. We thank the committee for its consideration today and await its conclusions with interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Councillor Saunders, please? Councillor Kenny.
Oops. Right. What's on the other side of the road?
There is an open plot of land with extant permission for 10 dwellings.
Okay. Kills one of my arguments. Thank you.
Councillor Jewell.
Yeah, is there a demand for the houses in your area there? I mean, are these going to be the open market houses? There's no affordable, these are going to be sold on the open market. What is the housing situation in your area?
They are, as far as we're aware, to be open market housing, Councillor Jewell. The planning permission granted on the site opposite was actually first granted in 2017 and refreshed, if you like, just last year. The plot is now up for sale, has been for 12 months. It's an application for 10 houses. That seems to us suggestive that so far the owner of that site has not managed to persuade someone that there is a need for further housing. We suffer in a way because all of the larger developments that have come forward have been of 10 or less. So in general, we do not get the affordable housing come forward that there is definitely a need for. I suspect we have more need for affordable than for open market.
Okay, and moving on, this land that has its stamp permission, did that have any flooding issues, or is it just this side of the road that's flooding issues?
I've never observed standing water on the site opposite. Okay. It was used as a storage yard for many, many years. So the ground over there is compacted. In fact, there was a bungalow there at the time as well. So it was a brownfield site.
All right, Councillor Jewell.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Saunders, the flooding issue, we've heard two distinctive arguments here. Mr. Montague assures us that there is no flooding issue, and yet the earlier representation we had pointed out considerable flooding issues. And living and representing the area that I represent, which stands a danger of flooding out Truro, I'm very concerned about this argument. And can you clarify for us, please, who's right? You can't have it both ways. This land is either susceptible to flooding which would make it impossible for housing, or it is not. And it needs to be sorted positively in my to enable me to hold my hand up in favour of it. Can you help me with my decision to make in a few minutes' time?
I shall certainly try, Councillor Dyer. The evidence has been there of flooding has been there all winter long. We had several storms close together just before Christmas, in fact, and we had standing water as a result on that water meadow and the piece of land in question today for many weeks thereafter. I think, you know, Councillor Bull, Chair, touched on it earlier, that this is a case of local knowledge trumping what the officials say is the case.
That's why I asked the question, but thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, please.
Yes, thank you. If I could ask, please, for some clarification on the site plan drawing in our presentation, because it is rather, shall I say, pale. But Councillor Saunders, you mentioned in your reason for bringing to committee on the grounds of overdevelopment is the first part. Now, I've tried to sort of take in what this sketch is telling me, and it seems that there is copious open space to the rear, and there's parking for 2 vehicles and a garage to the front. Now, that doesn't say to me that it is overdevelopment. So could you just inform us as to why you think it is, please?
I think it was the parish council statement that mentioned overdevelopment specifically. My contention is that this is development in front of the current building line, and that materially changes the character of this particular area.
The first page, page 27, says the application has been called to committee by the electoral division member on the grounds of overdevelopment, blah, blah, blah. So we'll let that rest then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Montague, Chairman, if I may go on just a second.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Montague, I think it's accepted there is flooding on the site, but it can be mitigated adequately. Now, I think in the past, and I've heard you say from the chair, that if something can be engineered out, we should be agreeing with that solution. Now, does that still stand in this case?
Yeah, as far as I know, I would agree with you on that, Councillor Greenstay, but that is a question you can ask the planning officer in a minute.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But before you go, Councillor Saunders, I want just to ask a couple of questions linked with those Councillor Kenny asked at the beginning, because the questions in my mind about this are around place shaping and character. Am I correct in thinking that all of the new build is on the other side of the road? There's actually a lot of new build on the other side of the road. The character of this side of the road that we're looking at is purely historic and traditional. Is that correct?
I would concur with that, Chair, yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's the only question. All right, thank you, Councillor Saunders. I don't see any other questions if the Vice Chairman concurs.
I agree, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And thank you for attending. And we move on to questions of the Planning Officer. Councillor Dyer, could you lower your hand and your cameras on, please? So perhaps you could just deal with that.
There are Done it.
Thank you very much. So we move on to questions of the planning officer. Who wishes to start, please? Councillor Mould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Councillor.
Paragraph 59, this issue of surface water. I mean, I don't quite understand it, because we've got option A, to discharge the water course off-site. This will require permission from the riparian owner. Now, if they don't get that, and so they're admitting that they do have to discharge all this water somewhere, South West Water have said they will look at it if they cannot. They've agreed in principle to connect to the sewer if permission is not granted.
That's
now,
right.
it just seems to me that allowing this, at the very end of this, it's saying recommend approval with a whole list of conditions, 8 of them: foul surface water drainage, final drainage schemes, Southwest Water. Now, wouldn't it make more sense, and I might be wrong here, to have all this information confirmed in place in an absolute will before we grant the permission? Because I can see this turning into an absolute nightmare for some. There's a main sewer going through this site, and I'm sure they'll say they can mitigate it or will have to move it. Now, the cost of producing this site, and I know that's not an issue here, but putting all this right just to build 3 houses seems to be a mammoth task. And this land is wet. I drive past it umpteen times to go to St Austell, and there's water sitting there any day that it rains heavily. And I have real concerns about this flooding, and this argument that goes around where you can mitigate everything and move it away. I'm not really sure. So, I mean, are you confident that all this can be, with the permission is granted, that all these things can be put right? I mean, it just seems a lot to me, a lot of conditions, you know, after giving a permission.
Oh, thank you, Councillor. I mean, obviously, I'm not a drainage expert, so we've consulted our own flood authority, who've assessed it, and they recommend that the application can be attenuated successfully, subject to the imposition of the condition and the condition 3, which is on the list of conditions. And obviously that condition is quite detailed for the amount of information that's required by the local authority in order to ensure that the development doesn't cause any risk of flooding in the future, and any surface water can be successfully attenuated either on site or with the option perhaps to go to the Southwest Water sewer if they can't discharge to the watercourse to the northwest.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Before we go on to the next question, thank you. Tracy, could either yourself or Gavin come in before the committee spends a lot of time on the issue of the options open to a committee if experts have already concurred that mitigation on flood issues can take place?
Gavin, do you want to step in there?
Yeah, I can help. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Chair. As you know, very risky. And so just to be clear on the site, there's been a report done that's bespoke to the site itself. So an expert has gone, a suitably qualified person has gone out to the site, done their report bespoke to the environment they found, which Tracy's kindly put a picture up on now. That report's been prepared and reviewed by our technical officer, who's agreed with the conclusions. The condition that Councillor Mould made reference to previously is a standard condition that we put on a lot of our permissions. My own view is I'm not expecting that to be onerous to discharge. We do that a lot. If planning committee were to come to a different view to our experts here, they'd need to have very good technical reasons to do that. And my advice to you would be to err on not doing that unless you have such technical reasons. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Councillor Alvey, your questions next. Councillor Dyer, your camera's still on. Councillor Alvey, your question, please.
Thank you, Chair. And much of what I was going to ask has just been covered there, but my concern is also around the flood risk, and I appreciate that our land drainage people have said there are potentially technical solutions, but my concern is that actually those technical solutions are disproportionate economically to the building of these 3 houses. And I am concerned that sometimes the discharge of conditions isn't as diligent as perhaps it should be. And I'm just concerned that we pass this with this condition around the land drainage, and an inadequate solution comes forward, and the condition is discharged, and then we're left with a problem of 3 houses that are prone to groundwater flooding. And yeah, I take the point. It's in flood zone 1.
What's your question, Councillor Alvey?
So my question is there any way that we can refuse the application until the more detailed drainage proposals are brought forward, or make it conditional that perhaps the chair and the vice chair of central planning is involved in confirming that they are satisfied with the drainage solution that is offered?
I can thank you, Councillor Alvey. I can help with that. So, national legislation tells us that we can't refuse a planning application for a reason if that reason can be addressed by a planning condition. And in this case, we have a planning condition to mitigate the concern.
He knows what the Parish Council have done to me and how they've treated me, and they've done the same. I know he's a bit bloody idiot.
Hang on. Whoa.
I don't know. I think probably what I'll do is I'll probably drop down one poster that like you're going to have, and he's entitled to that as really, but he wants to go OTT if you like. Put it.
John, I think that's Councillor Thomas I'm hearing. I don't know if you're
Chairman, I think it was Councillor Thomas. I think he had his microphone on by mistake.
Right, thank you. Right, sorry, carry on, Councillor Alvey.
Shall I start again? Is that the best thing to do?
Thank you, Gavin.
Okay, yes. So legislation tells us that we can't refuse a planning application if the reason for refusal can be addressed by a planning condition. So in this case, we've got a concern of flooding, and if we are, as officers, are minded to say that can be addressed by a planning condition, we can't refuse it. The point about discharging a planning condition, we can involve others to help us to do that if that would give you peace of mind. It is an area, I think, with a high level of technical expertise, but we could do that if you are minded to approve it today. I hope that helps.
Thanks. You'll appreciate I'm asking this position as somebody who's been heavily involved in flooding for many years and the concerns of many residents. So thank you for that, Gavin.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk about the flooding when we come to discuss it. This is a water meadow, so therefore I've been reading the biodiversity paper that's been put in. Is there any compensation? I appreciate the climate change document has only just gone through a consultation, but has any mitigation been put in for the fact that it's we're losing a water meadow, which obviously has a lot of wildlife on it and wild plants?
Can I answer that, Chair, Councillor? The application was submitted with a Phase 1 habitat survey. I think reference is made to that. If you just bear with me.
Yes, I read it.
Oh, okay, you've read it. So the findings were that the application site isn't subject to any species that are protected per se. There was an additional survey done on I think it was an ash tree which sat at the northwest corner of the site, just to ensure there was no bats or other protected species on there. Yeah, so in terms of it being, I think really the water meadow, if I just share my screen, if you don't mind, there is obviously the site is subject to standing water. I think as we drive closer to Bugle, this area of land as well is specifically affected by water. This is more of a, although it's subject to surface water issues, it's more of an enclosed parcel of land. But in terms of habitat species, the Phase 1 habitat survey says does say that the development could go ahead without any loss of any specific protected species, and there aren't any protected. There's no fauna on there in terms of plants.
They've not put in any mitigation for biodiversity.
They've just suggested that the application is carried out in accordance with the mitigation that's set out within the Phase 1 Habitat Survey.
Thank you.
I don't see any more committee questions, Tracy, but I've got one, please. Very unusually for me to query like this out of the chair. Perhaps it's just as well it's the last meeting. But I'm not really concerned about this, in that the place shaping, the character, the taking into account the historic character and gateway of the village. This place, all of the new build is on the other side of the road, and there's masses of it. Can you tell me how much weight you gave to this being a very historic, sort of almost village green entrance to Bugle?
Village green, is it?
Well, no, it's not a village green. I said almost. You know, a very historic, recognisable, defining entrance to the village. How much weight was given to that?
I understand what you're saying, Chair. I think for us, in terms of planning, we have to look at development in terms of the local plan, as you know. So we looked at, we go through the process of, is it infill, is it rounding off, is it previously developed land? So in this case, we came to the conclusion that it was rounding off of the development. Bearing in mind that you've got development on the northwest side, and obviously what's been approved on the opposite side of the road. You're right in that respect that it is currently an undeveloped parcel of land, and there is a balance when you develop on land that where there is no development. So there's always harm when you're looking at developing on a parcel of land where currently there doesn't exist development. So we have to take that into consideration as part of the balance when we're making that judgment. So we've taken that view that yes, there will be harm and there will be a loss of this undeveloped land, but you have to then balance it with the fact that the proposal will provide housing to meet the housing targets for the local plan. In terms of the historic value of it, I think it's a difficult call because I don't think there's ever been any development on there. So in terms of archaeological remains, it's a difficult one to call. The site constraints don't bring up anything on there that's specific that would require us not to develop on there. So it's just making that balanced judgment to in terms of looking at the character of the whole of the area and what's been approved locally, and making that judgment as to whether it would be harmful enough to warrant refusal. And I think in this case, the balance comes out in favour of development on that site. Does that answer your question?
It not exactly, because it's more about local distinctiveness than archaeological remains, more like ownership by the village. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I don't think
I've kept you long enough.
No, it's fine. I think it's because it's a privately owned parcel of land and not owned by the village, then we couldn't consider it to be.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, understand. Thanks, Tracy. Right, I see no further questions coming through. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I agree, Chairman.
Thank you. Then we move into debate. Who wishes to start, please? Councillor Mould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Paragraph 44 does say that this proposal will introduce new homes into an undeveloped land to the detriment of the character of the area. Now, this is 3 open market houses. It's not delivering any affordable houses, which I'm sure would be welcome in this village. There is a permission for 10 the other side of the road, which as yet have not been built out. There is no sill payable on this, and I take all on board everything that Gavin has said about drainage and, but when people live next door to wetland, they live next door to wetland. So on balance, whilst the drainage issue is, we have to assume that everybody or the authority has this right, I actually do think it does affect the character of this area. It's not desperately needed. We have, our land supply is 6 years ahead of itself. It's fine. So I actually do think this does have a detrimental effect on the people of this parish. It's the other side of the road. All major development is the other side of the road, and it's potentially building out into it's not even previously developed land. So subject to what others think, I'm mindful to look for a refusal, but I'm willing. I just want to hear what everyone else has to say first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, I agree. And if we can hold the picture that we got on screen at the moment. I mean, we can't do anything about the flooding. I remember a ghastly planning permission going through appeal, and the planning inspector gave us a training thing and saying, it's a condition. If you can meet it by condition, you can't complain. If it doesn't work, then you could the planning application lapses, which I thought was a slightly unpractical way, but that is the way they would take it. I think this area of land provides a wonderful part of the character of the area. You've got the older houses behind, and I think trying to develop on it is going to affect its character. So I've got no hesitation in proposing that we refuse this application on the basis of the character of the area. I would have liked to include the fact that it's a water meadow and it must have biodiversity on it, but I don't think we've got the policy in place yet to do that. When we get the climate change thing through, we might have, but I think at the moment we don't have that. So that is my proposal, and it's only on the character of the area, and the effect on the historic houses behind, not on the flooding.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kenny. Now, I saw Councillor Brown. You popped up the minute that Councillor Kenny said she was proposing refusal. Were you wishing to second that?
And John Thomas.
No,
No.
I don't want to second refusal, although I may well vote for refusal, because I'm actually going to make a point which is a bit contradictory to what Councillor Kenny said, or at least she may think it is.
Oh, right.
I've been very...
Oh, sorry. In that case, I have to stop you and ask for a seconder.
Okay.
Seconded, Madam Chairman.
Oh, right.
Councillor Thomas.
Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, Madam, I put my hand up instead of putting X in the box. My fault.
Okay, Councillor Thomas, do you wish to speak?
No, agree entirely with what Joanne said. Yeah, it's totally out of character with the area. I have got several concerns. Like Councillor Mould has said, most of the developments on the other side, I just don't. With the housing stock, I don't think this is warranted. That too, I think it's a bit futuristic, Madam Chairman, and too premature in my view. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. Right, Councillor Brown. Now you have the stage.
Part two, bit like Shakespeare. No, the point I was going to make is that I think the drainage is potentially an issue and the flooding, but I don't think we've been served as well as we could have been today, because we haven't had one of our technical officers present to advise us on that. And there have also been various references, well, mainly from the divisional member, to the STAR project. Now, I've got sort of very mixed opinions about the STAR project, and certainly have heard from opinions from people living in other bits of this area, not very complimentary about what that's trying to do at all. So what I was going to say was that if we wanted to defer the application so that we, at the first meeting of the new council, whoever is on it, maybe none of us will be, further consideration to the flooding dimension can be given. Having said that, there is a proposal for a refusal which has been seconded, which doesn't cover the flooding issue. And I'd be happy to vote for that refusal. But I'm really saying, say if that doesn't get through, then it may be deferral for a further report and attendance by a technical flooding officer from the council might help us.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Brown. We've had advice from the officer on how relevant and how much consideration we should give as a committee to the flooding issue. We have a proposal. I've got no further indications of speakers. Would you confirm that, please, Vice Chairman?
Yes, Chairman, I can confirm.
Thank you. So we have a proposal to refuse because of the character of the area, proposed by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Councillor Mould. I will just go to Gavin Smith to ask if he wishes.
Madam Chairman, I did second the proposal.
Yes, sorry, seconded by Councillor Thomas. Sorry. Apologies, Councillor Thomas. Gavin, did you wish to make any points on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just putting together now a draft reason for refusal going on what I've heard. My only question is, I understand, so where I'm at the moment, I'm saying the proposal by reason of introducing 3 new homes onto undeveloped land on a prominent location at the entrance of the settlement would harm the distinctive character of the surrounding area. Do you want to include in that, members of the committee, including the setting of the nearby terrace of homes at Wesley Court, or do you just want to leave it at character of the area? So I'm picking up, I think, that you were concerned collectively regarding the setting of the nearby terrace. That's your decision. We could leave it just as a surrounding area. We could actually include that as well specifically.
Yes, I would like to include that.
Okay.
Me too, Madam Chairman. Seconder would like to as well.
Thank you. That's very clear. So I think what a reason of refusal could be, the proposal by reason of introducing 3 new homes onto undeveloped land on a prominent location at the entrance of a settlement would harm the distinctive character of the surrounding area, including the setting of the nearby terrace of homes at Wesley Court. The application, therefore, is not sustainable development, is contrary to the aims and intentions of policies 1, 2, 12, 21 and 23 of the Cornwall Local Plan and paragraphs 8, 122 and 127 of the MPPBF. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful, Gavin. So you're happy to move forward, Councillor Kenny and Councillor Thomas?
Yes, thank you.
Words. Right,
yes, Madam Chairman.
So we have a proposal for refusal. Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Thomas, on the words that you have just heard, which are around the distinctiveness of the character of the area. Emma, would you take the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. It'd be a roll call vote if you could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alvey.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Bull.
For.
Councillor Dyer.
For.
Councillor Greenslade.
For.
Councillor Jewell.
For.
Councillor Kenny.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Mould.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the motion to refuse is being carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Emma. And there is no other business, but just before you all go, I want to thank, first of all, the officers through this council who've supported us with such good humour and good grace and so reliably. Gavin, Emma, Matt, all of them, all of the planning officers, despite how harsh our questioning. I want to thank all of you. We had some good times when we had pasties, didn't we? I wish we could give you that today. We've been overall good humoured, even when we've disagreed. But I also want to make a particular point of thanking Councillor Greenslade, Vice Chairman. Now, Fred has been a councillor. We both of us joined Restormal. It was either 2002 or 2003 that Fred joined. He's been chair of St Dennis Parish Council for more years than I think he hasn't through this. He's given unstinting service to planning in particular. He's been a very supportive vice chairman, and I think we all are very sad that you're not standing again, and we wish you well, Fred, and thank you very much for...
Thank you, Chairman. Much appreciated.
Well done, Fred. Well done, boy.
Yeah, so
well
I think a round of applause. If you could switch your cameras on, I can't see you. Okay, that's better. So we've mostly been good humoured, haven't we? We've had our scraps in the chamber, but We also had some convivial social time over pasties. So thank you all very, very much, and I wish you well, and thank you to the officers and everyone involved in central planning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I thank you, Madam Chairman, for your chairmanship as well. I think you've run the committee well, and I've certainly enjoyed being on it. Hopefully I'll be returned, but you never can tell. But anyway, love to you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye now.
All the best, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just wait for confirmation when the live stream has stopped.
Yeah, Gavin's not there still, is he?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Can I borrow you for a minute?
Yeah, of course.
Chairman, we are still live until we